We have a significant building behind me here at Old Government House in Parramatta. It is very, very representative of Georgian architecture of that period of time, but more importantly, it's the stories that come from that building that make the difference. The original architect was a man by the name of James Bloodhurst. James was a convict. Lachlan Macquarie, his wife, played a major role in helping the architectural design of the building into what we call a Palladian style, and they also used one of the aide-de-camps, Lieutenant Watts, to help in the architectural design of the building, and a very late stage, Francis Greenway, a well-known Australian architect and former convict, was also involved in its design. The reason they located the building here was that it provided an area of arable land along the river with fresh water, good soils and a plentiful supply of fish. The whole concept of symmetry is important in Georgian architecture. So you get the central doorway on the bottom level with two windows on either side. You go to the upstairs floor, you have the central window with two windows on either side. As you progress around the house, you'll find that symmetry evident wherever you go. The proportion of the windows and doorways to the rest of the structure. And they're calculated on a mathematical formula in relation to the height and width of the walls that they occupy. The oldest artefact belonging to the house is Mrs. King's dress. One of the earliest stories relates to a First Nations or Aboriginal person by the name of Baladari. Baladari was a local tribesman and had assisted Governor Phillip in his exploration of the Sydney Basin. And Baladari was operating on the river here as a fisher person and was selling his goods to the local British soldiers and settlers in the area. At one stage, his small canoe, bark canoe, was stolen and broken up and destroyed. He was very upset by this. Governor Phillip promised that he would take the right steps and bring the offenders to justice, and he did so and punished them. However, Baladari wasn't satisfied with that because in his tradition they required a payback, and he actually speared in the leg one of those gentlemen. Governor Phillip was upset by that and said, "I am the governor, I'm in control of the law in this country, and you've offended that law, or you've broken that law, and I'm afraid that I'm going to have to outlaw you." In that process, he contracted smallpox. One of his relatives, Benelong, went to the governor and explained the situation. The governor forgave Baladari and took him into his own care and cared for him for around about 3 weeks until his passing. On his passing, it was probably the first cross-cultural burial in the land, in that he was placed in his canoe with various items of possessions and floated down the Parramatta River, and then once reaching the harbour area, he was taken aside and buried in the grounds of the Government House in Sydney. Two stories of significant tragedy with those who lived in the property. And if we take Governor Burke's wife as the first example, in that she was a woman with a special illness of the time that couldn't be diagnosed. She was moved from the upstairs quarters of the house down into the bottom quarters and cared for by the staff at that time until her passing. And so Governor Burke found it difficult to come back to the property because of the passing of his wife. Another tragedy related to the house is with Lady Mary Fitzroy. As she left Government House here to go to the city, she had mounted the coach to take her into town, and her husband had decided that he would drive the carriage into the city because they were running late. The groomsman at the time objected strongly to the set of horses that had been placed into the carriage, and Governor Fitzroy demanded that they be the horses. The coachman then resigned on the spot. The horses bolted. As it turned a sharp bend towards the bottom of the road here, the carriage overturned, hit a tree, and both Lady Fitzroy and her aide-de-camp were killed instantly. Governor Lockton Macquarie had one son to his second wife. She'd had a number of miscarriages, and of course that son was very special and very precious to both the Governor and Mrs Macquarie. And a lot of care was taken during his childhood not to expose him to the dangers of the world. Unfortunately, as he matured into an adult, some of those dangers threatened him in various ways, and he dies a rather sad and lonely death at an early age of around about 38, 40 years of age as an alcoholic. It's the oldest colonial building in Australia, still in situ, still in its original state. It also is recognised as a World Heritage Site.